Yeah. Yeah. My third list to reflect on the music of 2017 will be another negative one, unfortunately. It is the top 10 worst albums that I listened to in 2017. Because when you're listening to the amount of music that I did that year, you're gonna come across some ones that kind of make you a little bit shaken up. And certainly not in the best ways either. To point it out very quickly, if you want to see a written version of the list, as usual, there will be a link to one of those in the description on a little blogspot page I put up, where I will be putting out written versions of all the other music lists of 2017 that I'm doing as well. But since we're here, we may as well just dive right into the top 10, starting with number 10. At number 10, it's an album that kind of hurts a little more than I'd like to admit, but it proves that even the most beloved of your favorite indie bands can make some pretty big misfires. Arcade Fire released quite the disaster of an album earlier this year with Everything Now.
Infinite content, we're infinitely content. Infinite content, we're infinitely content.
When Arcade Fire reinvented themselves to do this disco-inspired dance pop thing, I thought Reflector did have some pretty potent moments, but I don't think Everything Now is as polarizing because I think even the deepest of Arcade Fire's fans are starting to see this was a pretty big nosedive. I mean, sure, you'll have a great title track which opens up the entire thing quite nicely, but I've never seen the quality of an album just so fast. Arcade Fire tried to comment on the saturation of the digital age, which is a very interesting topic, but I just don't think Arcade Fire are making the most interesting observations of this thing, especially with lyrics like these. Infinite content, we're infinitely content. Get it? Because content doesn't just mean content as in internet content, it also means happy, because you got the money and I got the time. I got a secret that'll make you mine. What, are we Dr. Seuss now? Go to the city, go to the store, take out a loan from another bank. That doesn't even rhyme. Any emotional buzz that you thought you could get from a Win Butler and Regine Chassan duo is kind of washed away on the cheesy and goofy ska-inspired cut called Chemistry, where ironically none of it exists on there. You have a hugely distorted and repetitive track called Infinite Content, which also ironically I wanted to end within seconds. And you have mixing on a track called Electric Blue, which is cloudier than a hangover piss. And don't even get me started onto that self-congratulatory lyric about committing suicide while listening to your first album. I don't know if Arcade Fire are ever going to bounce back from that one. At number 9, it's our favourite pop duo, the Chainsmokers.
Yeah, it's hard when you're young.
At this point, it is no secret that the Chainsmokers are one of the least creative acts in popular music. I try to be optimistic about it, and I sometimes think it gets a little too much flack for what it is. But when you have acts like Chainsmokers just creating the same tedious, pasty, unfun dance songs with repetitive and lazy melodies and sappy lyrics that try to derive really lovely emotions out of random place names and inanimate objects that they hope the listener can relate to, it's hard to kind of make a case for it. It is a little bit sad because it sounds like they actually tried to make something emotionally captivating, but it seems like the task was a little too much for our two protags to handle because the music ended up sounding flatter than ever. At number 8, it's a black metal band. Very trendy, very mainstream topping. Black metal. You know, that commercial genre out there. I don't know what I'm talking about. Even as someone who's kind of entry level of black metal right now, there's still just an undeniable flaw in Ghost Bath's new album, STARMOURNER. Ghost Bath have already got a lot of flack in the past, but this is an album that features over an hour of one-note, squeaky clean metal that features a couple of cuts where sometimes the blaring guitars don't even match up with the blast beats. And some of the vocal screams or shouts just sound like the dude's just wailing. Wah! 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 I feel like even non-metal fans could listen to something like this and realize something's just a little bit off. At number 7, it is Macklemore, who rides trends like a tricycle.
Can't
Can't nobody get up in my car today. Backseat, feeling like a charter plane. Bumping so the shocker charge it to the game.
Macklemore just flies off the wall. Sometimes Macklemore will just say things that make no sense in the context of the song. They like might not even relate to a topic, if there is one. As he tries his hand replicating the sounds of Chance the Rapper's coloring book.
Ghosted at the corner store. Ghosted at the corner store.
Or Amigos trap rap song.
I'm a motherfucking icon. Boots made of python.
Or Drums Broccoli. The song even features Lil Yachty on it.
Celebrating these life goals, but you ain't getting no ride home. I be riding through the town, my music loud.
Macklemore also tries his hand at having auto-tune over his voice, which works horribly, and I would not like to hear it ever again. There are some pretty generic pop cuts, some bearable ones too. The one featuring Kesha was alright. You have your obligatory Skylar Grey feature, and while some of them can be bland, they're not as offensive as the ones that try to just blatantly rip off the style of another artist. In terms of lyrical highlights, you have the song Intentions, which was on my top 10 worst songs of the year because of how cringy it really is. I want world peace, but I wanna watch World Star. I wanna be a feminist, but I still wanna watch that porno. Oh my gosh, oh my fucking god. I'd die for that W. Hey, I had that Guns N' Roses jacket. I never listened to the band, but I just thought it looked pretty cool. And there are also not one, but two lyrics referring to Geico. And to top it all off, you have one of the songs where the hook is, and he says this in a very intimidating way, as if he's trying to be epic and badass. I woke up like bitch, I'm Willy Wonka.
I woke up like bitch, I'm Willy Wonka. Bitch, I'm Willy Wonka.
I understand the idea of a song being fun or hype, but that doesn't excuse me from calling out things when they are just absolutely whack. This just goes over the edge by being over an hour long. At number 6, it's Joan of Arc with This Land in Your Hands is the Land in My Hands. I don't know what the title is.
I must have been born hanging out. I must have been conceived hanging out. And I know I'm gonna die by hand.
If you thought that was a very indulgent title, just wait till you hear the music. In fact, the opening few seconds are the moment where you kind of realize what you're in for. It's one of the worst cases of that let's try to be artsy and absurd veneer that you find in a lot of indie music. But the thing is, this album rarely functions on a coherent, or at the very least pleasant sounding musical idea. In other words, this album just sounds flat out awful. Either it's just giving you these sour and brittle sounds, or it's just boring you to tears. Either side of this coin makes the album a very dull, dreary slog, and one of the least enjoyable experimental indie releases that I listened to this year. At number 5, it's a very frustrating release because I know that a lot of people are going to latch onto this, thinking it's hashtag relatable. It's so transparent, it's so obvious that this thing is manufactured millennial pop that tries to take after the quirky and colourful sounds of a record from Jon Bellion, who, by the way, is actually a talented songwriter. I won't deny that at all. But this album tries to take those sounds and turns it into some screechy, dwindling mess that features lyrics from these three young gentlemen who try to convince you that they are a pop act that is subverting the norms. They're not like the other pop acts. They're not conforming to the conceited and fabricated pop culture and celebrity culture. They're writing songs about Netflix and weed and having a good relationship with your dad. It tries to come across as quite modest, but it's so utterly pretentious. I mean, there's all of that, and there's also the fact that they have really annoying screeches. At number 4, we have a release that might shock quite a lot of people that it's not at number 1, but I just don't see the point of getting irrationally angry about something as blatantly and intentionally pathetic as this. But even then, I still don't like this.
Walk in and try out like a boss. Ooh. Walk in and try out like a boss. Yeah, I came in with a sauce. Ooh. Yeah, I came in with a sauce. Ooh. Bitch, I flare red Ross. Ooh. Bitch.
Florida trap rap viral sensation and Harvard scholar Lil Pump or Dr. Pump, PhD, as I should call him, made waves on the internet with hilariously vapid singles that weren't really meant to be taken too seriously. They were just a ridiculous time. I can't bring myself to genuinely be angry about D-Rose or just throw a rage about Gucci Gang. Who does that? Quite a lot of people, actually. That's quite sad. And it's not like Lil Pump's flaws have been that hidden or subtle. They've been pretty blatant. They've been the reason that the songs get so joked about, and the reason that the songs have so much buzz around them, because they're just so ridiculous. But if there's anything that kind of exposes those flaws even more, to an extent where I it's having a full track list of songs exactly like D-Rose or exactly like Gucci Gang, where every song just follows a really tedious pattern, where the one gimmick to Lil Pump's music just becomes so old and tiresome. I just did not enjoy this at all. You see, my issue with Dr. Pump PhD isn't the dumb fun thing, because I can tolerate maybe one track of his, I can have a good laugh, but an entire tape of it just gets on your nerves. The dude just repeats key catchphrases as if he's channeling his past career and studying for his biochemical engineering exam and trying to repeat those notes back to himself to remember them.
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
It's a real bummer because I can see the fun popping up with this mixtape, but the fun dies 10 seconds into each song after you realize what the main gimmick is. But it's not the worst of the year, mainly because, in retrospect, I can derive some playful enjoyment out of a song like Gucci Gang because it's just so dumb. The next 3 albums on this list, though, they don't follow this. Not at all. At number 3, I don't think anyone expected anything good from this. But that doesn't mean I can't call it out, because Jake Paul and Team 10 did release a Christmas EP. That's all I'm going to say.
Mrs. Claus just be playing these games. Can't hang with the lames. Red and green on the chains. Custom Christmas Gucci frames. It's a litmus, bro. Don't know rain is lit. Christmas litmus.
Amazingly, that Ghost Bath album wasn't even the last metal album to appear on this list. And guess what? It's not even the last album on the list to feature a member from Ghost Bath. Again, I think even those not familiar with black metal, or even metal in general, would be able to recognize some of the deepest issues with this unusual and unsettling release. Not that it's unsettling in its mood, although maybe considering its subject matter it could be, but it's more unsettling in its existence, because I don't understand the drive behind it. If we want to talk about the technical aspects, the production sounds cheap and plastic, there are instrumentals that sound completely out of field, the composition work in general just sounds like one big stupid mess, the person or group didn't know how to write a song. I think the vocals are kind of where we have an overlap between technical flaws and just conceptual flaws, because the vocals are what make this album sound like a mere parody of black metal, like if Bart Baker listened to a Burzum record. Sometimes they sound like the vocalist is recording like late at night in his mum's house, where they can't be too loud or they'll wake up their parents, which would be very unfortunate for the frontman of a black metal record. Tommy, what did I tell you about listening to Agalloch again? Not only that, but it makes the suicide-themed concept of the album just that much more tasteless. I know that depressive, suicidal black metal is like a thing, but this has got to be an example that lacks taste entirely in respect to its subject matter. Maybe it's meant to be shocking, maybe it's meant to be a parody, but it's so badly done, and no minute of the dungeon synth or black metal or noise or ambient music is well executed. My shower in the background right now is screeching because there's a problem with the plumbing, and funnily enough it sounds better than this album. At number 1 is an album that is 2.5 hours long. The length alone isn't the issue, it's probably a combination of the length and the fact that the artist is who he is, and he still gets like really high exposure to the mainstream, which is boggling my mind to this day. Yes, I am talking about Chris Brown's Heartbreak on a Full Moon.
Said I wanna get to know you. Juicy booty tonight. So show me that, girl, I'm trying to make you.
Almost 3 hours of Chris Brown. Most people can't even make it through 3 minutes. This album has 45 tracks. And when I listen to the YouTube upload version of this because I'm not listening to this on Spotify. I'm not tarnishing my Spotify profile with that face. I really struggled to get past track 5. Ultimately, I got to track 15, which may raise a few eyebrows, and they may say, Ricky, that's not really a fair judgment. You're not really judging the entire album as a whole. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. If the first 15 tracks are this gross, featuring track titles like Juicy Booty, and having R-rated, yucky, gross descriptions of sex, and licking your private parts, and banging your partner in the shower, and rimming, and fellatio, and all of that stuff, over really glossy, generic pop dancehall beats, this thing is going to get unbearable real fast. In the end, I just figured 2.5 hours is too much for my soul to handle. I don't know if anyone asked for 3 songs by Chris Brown, let alone 45 of them. There are plenty of albums out there that stretch the 2, 3, even 4 hour mark, and I'm sure are very worth listening to. But if you have an album that reaches that runtime and doesn't offer a single minute of worthwhile material, then I think we've got a bit of a problem there. I don't know if there are many Chris Brown fans who watch my channel, so I don't think I'll have to deal with too many arguments on this front. Kind of a nice bright side to this entire situation. Yes.